All right, so this is it's just a piece of newsprint, but we've got to go ahead and do some different Loomis heads. So again, we want to practice the Loomis heads, so we've got them, so we can go ahead and make sure that we can just very quickly build these heads that we can then go ahead and modify. Because again, remember, the Loomis head is meant to be modified. It's not the end all be all. It's just the starting point. It's a generic representation of a humanoid skull is all that it is. It's up to us to then go ahead and make it a little better. So again, we've got my little dais here. We've got the middle part. There'll be the brow, hairline, nose line. This would be the ear. And again, we could even take this for the planes of the head. And we've got ourselves a simple Loomis in profile. We could then go ahead and do a 3/4 view. And this is going to be a fairly straight on. In other words, the person's not tilting their head. The camera's neither above nor below, so it's like right about the eye line. We would then have the ellipse right here, and then that ellipse would go ahead and it'd be cutting just slightly a little bit of that circle. It's around a 30-degree ellipse, which means we're also going to be flattening this a little bit. We're then going to go ahead and go, okay, where's my dais? Here's the dais. Again, so we're going to go ahead and this is with the eye. Again, just a tiny bit below. I guess if it was right in the eyes, this would almost be a straight line. So let's go ahead and do that. I already said we were going to do that, so that's what I'm going to do. Bring this over. Now we've got, and I forgot to put down the center line. Now again, this is the measured middle, and the center line is going to be to the left of that because this head has turned to the left. And so here's the center line. And then we're going to come off of here and come down towards the chin. The chin is going to be in line with these other 3 lines. They're all supposed to be parallel. And we would then have this come, from this, the central line there. Behind this, in this lower quadrant, that's the ear. This would then be, again, a 3/4 view, Loomis head that we could then again continue to modify. We've got one up here. Now this would be a front view. Again, it's going to be a front view where it's pretty close to being just right on. It's neither above nor below. So the camera or the person is looking straight into this person's eyes. They're the same height as their eye line. So we're not going to have the angles be doing anything weird. So this is going to be, again, my very thin. This should be about a 10-degree or 5-degree-esque ellipse. There's the dais. This is where we're going to keep it straight across because they're looking right into the eyes. So that means this is going to flatten out with the perspective part of it because of where it's situated to the viewer's eye line. Essentially, the middle of this is right on the center of vision if you know your perspective. If you don't worry about it. But that's why going across here, these are lined up. It's the type of perspective that flattens out as flat as a pancake, but it's what you'd call a true front view. So we have the hairline, brow line, nose line, take that distance down, and we would have this right here. Again, this is our dais. Now this is actually straight up and down. Technically the head should be a slight angle because the head is a bit of a wedge shape. So instead of keeping these straight, I'm actually going to give a little bit of an angle because the head is wider at the top and less wide towards the bottom. And we would just come off of there for a Loomis head. Very, very, very simple. you know, I'm a little tight for this video in terms of my didn't do a warm up like I should have done. So it's a little, these are a little labored. They're a little. I would like them to be looser, is normally how I try to do when I draw. But again, this is, this right here again is this somewhere between a 10 and a 5-degree ellipse. We've cut off the circle about that much, and we've got ourselves, again, a front view. And we'd also have to put on here that this person has ears. So you put the little ears in the back lower quadrant between the eye line and the nose line. And there we got, there's another Loomis head. So let's come over here. Now we're going to start to change the positioning just a little bit. So let's say for this one over here, this way we're going to have it where we have a slight. So this is a true profile where this is in the middle for that plate. This is a profile that's a soft profile. So it's almost a true profile, but not quite. And we know that because our dinner plate here, the circle has opened up to a full circle, but it's still touching our larger circle, which is the head. So as he continues to turn, this would go until it's in the middle. This is not in the middle. So this is a soft profile, as we call it. This is supposed to attach. Looks like it's drifted away a little bit, but that's because of, the way I drew it. So this is actually open a little too far. So I'll bring that to there. This will be the side of the face. Now, again, we can keep these lined up. This would be, again, if the person's looking right at their eye line, there'd be very little change between one side to the other. So again, sometimes people are like, well, the perspective box, wouldn't there be convergences? This would be, again, something that's very close to the eye line, which is the horizon line. So these, for all intents and purposes, are so close that they're truly parallel, and we see very little change with this. So we'll just keep them straight. This is, again, the measured middle, perspective middle would put this thing probably right about here. If we, came over here, in fact, it's over a little bit more. So, and I brought this up, hit that there, tried to eyeball the arc, and the arc puts it right about there. So this would be my center line. This is the dais, and the dais would have a slight angle, truth be told, because the head is a wedge. It's wider up here, and it's thinner as it comes down. So this is actually a little bit of an angle if we get technical. So we're going to come from off of there, and then we're going to have the transition point to the jaw, and then this is going to come down, and this is this Loomis head. So again, this is the brow, the hairline, the nose line. The ear would be in this lower quadrant. It would almost be a full, the ear is almost all the way open. So again, there's our Loomis head. And again, from here we just start modifying stuff. So it's not a perfect Loomis head, nor does it have to be. It's not how you start, it's how it ends. That's the important thing. If we got technical, there'd be a notch for the ocular cavity. The cheek would be in front of the top of the brow just a little bit. But because this is such an extreme view, we'd have the glabella here, and then we'd have the nose that would project out, and the nose would come out in front of the cheek. And then it would return just in front of the center line, so maybe right about there, and then we would have the mandible, or pardon me, the muzzle, and then the muzzle is in front, the teeth are in front of the chin. So you'd have something that would look about, let's see if we can bring this over here. Again, the glabella is flattening out because of the perspective. We're seeing very little of the bridge because of the perspective. We're really seeing more of the side of this nose, and we also would see, again, the ocular cavity. And so again, this is, a little bit of how we would deal with this, and how we would present the features. We could turn this into the sunglasses sort of thing, so that would be that there. This would be the underside of the nose. Bring this from this point here down to the side of the chin. That's the side. So this is the side plane of the head, like so, or thereabouts. Again, this might be a little too far this away, but I could always move it back that away. I mean, no big thing. This again is the ear in here. And again, we just got a simple Loomis. And we could put the lips on here, but we don't necessarily have to, depending on what we want to do. So let's say we did this one. Now with these, we're keeping these all in line. Let's say we had a camera that's just a little bit above. And so, pardon me, not above, but the camera is a little below, which means now we're going to get a little bit of an A happening. And I'll show you that in a second. This actually has a bit of an angle because of the wedge of the face. That might be a little too much, but that's close enough. This is, again, so this is my ellipse, fairly open ellipse, so it's turning quite a bit to the left as far as that goes. Just realized I don't have any of these turning to the right, which is because I'm a lefty, but I just, so I have to, it's the more comfortable side to have it turning to the left instead of turning to the right. But it's it's the same thing, just mirrored. It's just I apparently didn't think about it when I laid all these out. So again, got my circle. So this is, now again, this is supposed to be 1/6 and 1/6. It's pretty close, unless they start to tilt. Now we're not doing extreme tilts. This is just a basic Loomis head. We're not doing any extreme tilts or anything, but we are going to have the fact that this is the eyes below, somewhere, maybe the eyes right here looking, so it's looking up. So again, we have where we can't see, we'd have a box. If the box is above our eye, that means we're going to see a little bit of the bottom of the box, and you get this A up here and this A there for a box that's seen from above. So we get the same thing here. This, where the circle comes through there, that's the right side versus the front of the face. We'd bring this up at the same angle. These are supposed to be parallel. That's not quite parallel, but we're going to use our imagination. This would come over here. And usually I start with this. Some people start with the, this is actually not all the way halfway, so we're going to lower it a little bit. So some people, they start with the center line. I'll start with these angles just because I want to make sure those are that I get the perspective right. Once I've got that done, we'll be like, okay, well, let's do the perspective middle. And again, this would be measured middle. We know that this is somewhere above that. That's measured. I just eyeballed measured middle, but you can do X marks the spot with a little box there or whatever. But if I come through here with a similar arc to this, it's just that it's a bigger ellipse, but it's the same proportion. That pushes the middle to there. That's the perspective middle of the head. This thing comes up and over. And again, this is using this method that's very much like, drafting and stuff, but it's meant to be used, very, very, again, very loosely. Here's my dais. This is, the ear is going to be over here in that lower quadrant. This comes down. Technically, this should be the transition of the jaw is usually about where the mouth is, so I could bring this around the corner, keep it parallel. That wasn't quite parallel, but it's close enough. But that's where the jaw should change. The chin should be in line with these other lines. So if these lines are all going like this, well, then the chin should also be parallel to that. So now we've got this Loomis head, like so. And again, this actually has a little bit of a tilt. Looks like I tilted it downward. If that's not what I want, well, then I have to change the line. But this also, if this is tilting down, if the chin is tilting down, well, then the line has to be at a slight angle as well. So I changed the line from being straight to actually coming down a little bit like this, as if this person is tucking their chin in ever so slightly. It's not a big extreme. And I'd have to trim the chin just a little bit, the way it would come down into here. But again, just a very simple Loomis head. If I wanted the side plane come and touches from this point down to the side of the jaw there. So you'd be like, okay, and there's the side plane right there. There's this plane right here. And you've got, again, this would be the side plane of that head. And again, this is the brow. And again, we could take this and cut this in half for the eye line, which would probably be right about there. This is a little, I think this is a little low. So let's bring this to there. If we cut this in half, that's going to put the septum right about there-ish. I think this is still too low. I think this is low. So maybe that's the bottom of the septum. But anyways, and then you take this and cut this in half, and that's about the bottom of the lip. So anyways, got the ball of the nose, the septum, the eye line, the brow line, the hairline. We got all these landmarks, and we can put together a nice head. Just realized this is a little light. So again, let's say we actually had someone that's in a front view but looking up. Now, when you have a front view looking up, now this is a gentle. This is not extreme. I just realized that this is actually with the camera lower. So this is more about the camera. And you might say, how do you know that? And it's because of the perspective I put on here. I have these light little sketches because I was trying to think of all these different situations instead of just going at it on the fly. But we had this, so I made the decision that this right here, you had your circle. And then we put on the 5 to 7, it can't be more than 10 degrees. In fact, it's probably supposed to be between 7 and 5 or something like that. But we have our little very thin ellipses. Now again, technically these are staying straight up and down. They should be at a slight angle. So let's say this is the midline through there. This is the mid, instead of a straight up and down, this is the midline there. So it's getting wider as it comes up. And it's not a big angle, but it's enough to be aware of. We have the center line. I'm just going to go ahead and put the center line for something like this for symmetry, for mirroring. Very, very important for true. This is a true front view. And I can then measure, is this distance here the same as that distance there? Is the distance here off that center line the same as the distance there off the center line? And it's not, so I would go ahead and make sure that we're dealing with symmetry. So I go, okay, that right there is equidistant. And, so anyway, so we could go ahead and do that. But what the more important thing is that this is at a slight angle. Now, if it's at a slight angle, what that means is that if it's still in the middle, like this right here is about the same distance, that central point is about the same distance, which means it's still in the middle, what that means is that this is just a lower eye line. So when if the eye is down here looking up at this person, you get this sort of thing where this is, I'm going to bring this over to try to check the angle, and there it's a little different. So I'd come through here, make sure this is at the same place. I'll miss that a little bit, so that would then connect right about through there. Okay, so this looks like a little trapezoid because it's wider at the back of the face than the front. But this is we have this coming up, and what that means. Now, if it was an extreme angle with them really, putting their chin, was lifting their chin, this would become even more so. But this is just very subtle to imply that the eye is below the head. So what happens on something like this is that this becomes an angle, and I was trying to bring this down for this side plane. This is the right side, this is the front, this is the left side, this is the front. So you could go ahead and come in here and you say, well, this would also be at the same angle as this. This would be at the same angle at that. And then it would come across here straight. And then same thing up here. This would come at the same angle. Now that's not the same angle. So I'm going to bring this line out just because it's easier to make it more parallel till that hits this right here. And then that's going to come across there. And it's going to push this line up a little bit. Now, if they were, again, lifting their chin a lot, all of a sudden this would start getting smaller because of perspective. Because this is just dropping the camera, it's going to be doing it a little bit less. So if I wanted to go, well, okay, I'll lift this by the edge, because right now they're close to equal. What if I lift this by about a hair of a line? Well, that's fine. And that means this is going to go a little longer. Maybe this can go up a little bit too. And then we can check this distance to that distance. and this is longer, okay? And then you take this from there and bring this down to here, where you go ahead just a little bit lower there. And so this is again where we're getting its biggest, medium, and small because of perspective, brow line, nose line, and in the hairline. Now something for this, the jaw starts to square out. Whenever you get something where, again, you're lowering down, you don't see as much of the jaw coming up. So the jaw comes up less. It becomes more of a square jaw, as people will call it. And again, if he was looking up, this jaw would even start to see the underside. We're not dealing with that. We're just dealing where the eye is low enough that this squares out the jaw a little bit. So we'd have this more square jaw coming across there. And then again, we've cut off, remember with the front view, it really cuts off a lot of that circle. So we'd end up with something that would look about like that. This would be coming up. Now again, the head shape is a little, it's not perfect, but it's not bad either. It's not something I'm gonna, lose sleep over, but this is projecting probably a little bit too far. It needs to flatten out just a little bit more on the left side, but that's not a bad head. And then again, we'd have we'd have the ear that's in perspective because the front view, an ear that's in perspective because it's in the front view here. And again, it's still going to be between, this is going around the corner coming back, but that means because it's going to be basically the ear drops, because it comes here, then it drops there. It comes here, drops there, and that lowers the ear. And so we would go ahead and with a view like this, you'd see a little bit more, not a ton more, because again, it's just a little bit of a lower eye, but you'd see just a little bit more of the underside of the nose, little things like that. But again, the eyes, we could go ahead and put the sunglasses on. If you wanted to get technical, there's actually arcs through the face. And so instead of the lines being straight, they have slight arcs that happen. And so if I wanted to, I can actually that will help the illusion of perspective, because the arcs on the face, if you're looking down, they are smiles. But if you're above the eye, they become frowns. So all of a sudden, these become these little arcs that would then, do that. And same thing, and they should be parallel. Right now, this is dropping down, which is not a good thing. And so again, these would become arcs a little bit. This would become an arc. We'd have the mouth that would become an arc. And so you could go ahead and make these a little Loomis head. So again, this would be kind of arced as you're drawing the mouth. And again, it's just a little bit. It's not a super extreme view where you'd start to see the lip of the top lip stretches and the bottom lip compresses. It's not going quite that far yet. But, so we could just looks like I skimped on the chin a little bit on this one. Or this is too far, or both. Probably a little bit of both. If this is the lip line. That just means that this will also compress a little bit. But it's just a little bit. I could just add just a little bit more chin through there. And that could be all it needed. So again, we've got this face like so. And not a bad Loomis head. We could throw a neck on here, and away you go. Let's go ahead and come over here. We got 3 more that we're going to do, and we're going to have one where it's a little bit. This one right here is a little more extreme as far as that goes. But let's come up here. So again, this is again a front view again. So I'd start the front view with my circle. So we go ahead and draw my circle. And again, I'm shooting this where it's way far from my body, so I have to probably see me stretching in this. So this is way up and out, so it's a little harder to control. I'm using an overhand grip a lot that I normally wouldn't be using, and it's just because I'm trying to have a little bit nicer crafted line. Again, usually I'm sketching this with an overhand grip, which means a little looser and lighter, because again, this is my beginning. This is not the end. And again, we have to remember that. Again, I'm going to make these a little bit more. They were drawn originally straight up and down, which is technically wrong. So I'll give them a little bit of an angle, because the face is a little bit at an angle. This needs to come and probably touch there. If we change this, angle this about like that, that's a little messed up. But so let's see if we can. I think it's got a touch there. This has got a touch there, and so maybe. Okay, so maybe something like that. Not perfect, but again, this would be a sketch. I don't care so much. So this one, again, the camera is lower, so this becomes basically these arcs, because at some point you could round these off. With this one, we're going to have the camera above, and what happens with the camera above is it's the opposite. All of a sudden, so I'm going to go ahead and put the center line in here, showing that, coming through the middle of that ellipse, this center line here. Again, I'm just going to go ahead and just see if I can get this equal distant, because again, let's correct a mistake while we've got it. Don't be afraid to go, yeah, that's not right. No big deal. No harm, no foul. These are sketches. Sometimes, we start thinking of this as, oh no, I screwed up that, it's like, it's just the beginning. It's not the end. So we're going to have this come through the middle of this, and then hit here, and then it's going to, now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to bring a line straight down for where this is coming through. And that's just for where I bank this. So this would come through here, and that hits there, and this then goes across. So this implies that the eye is basically looking down, because now we can see the top, whereas this we couldn't see the top. So so again, we're going to have this here, then this is going to be parallel to that, hits that line there, and this comes across there. These lines are supposed to be parallel or parallel adjacent. Those are parallel close enough for who I run with. Again, this would come here and try to be parallel to this here, and try to be parallel to that there. Again, this has just got to be close enough so I can then modify it. It doesn't have to be perfect by any stretch of the imagination. So this is coming here, and then this would come across there. So, and then we would bring this. Now, if this is below, this would be longer, getting shorter this way. So it's just a little bit of perspective. Not a ton. It's not like an extreme perspective view, but it's this idea that the thirds in perspective, if this is closer to the eye, it's going to be getting, as it gets further away, it's going to be getting smaller. This distance is longest, medium, and small. So let's just say this is where the chin is. This is that center line, so we're going to come off of here. Now with this type of thing, you get more of a sort of a pointing to the jaw when you're looking down above looking down. You're going to get something where the jaw is not square. It only squares when you're coming down or the head is lifting up. Whereas if you come here and are looking down, basically because of the view to the angle, it looks like your chin is starting to transition quicker or higher up. So for this one, we dropped it down and started squaring it out here, whereas this one we're transitioning up here. So it makes the jaw look more pointed because of perspective. So again, that's there. I forgot to put the center line for symmetry. I definitely don't want to ignore that anymore, because that's how we're going to check to see if things are in the right place. Again, I'm drawing this much darker than I normally would if I was drawing this. So again, this is this head front view with Loomis. seeing this front view with the camera just slightly above. And again, whereas this one was frowny faces, these become smiles. So again, these lines, because we have some that's round, the lines going around this sort of flattened ball, because it's flattened on the front, you're going to see, if you're above them, you're going to see the smiles. If you're below, you're going to see the frowns. So this again would be our, this was where the circle was, and it looks like that's just, it's a little bit, the circle's a little long, but this would be the bottom of the lip. This actually seems like this should be the bottom of the septum, and the ball of the nose should be there. So again, it's not perfect. We'd start to check to go, well, let's see if we took this and divide this in half, where's the halfway mark? And if I took this, and if I took that, we're going to find that this right here is the halfway mark, which is where the eye line should be. If that's the eye line, now it's gonna drop a little bit, but it's not gonna be much. So even if we dropped it to there, this brow is too low. The brow needs to come up a little bit. So I think I went in front of the point with my smile, and it needed to start from that point and come back. So that's about where the brow line could be. This would then be, oh, I did do that on the, so this is the hairline, and I dropped it for the smile. It needs to stay at that point. Okay, because I threw it off. So, and I know you might be like, what in the world are you doing? Well, this is the, from here we've got, this is coming up. This is going to lift the ear, so you're going to have the ear a little higher up here. We have one of the portraits we're drawing where it's got a higher camera view. It's the front view, in fact. And we're going to have the ears are a little higher up, and that's just a telltale sign that, oh, the camera's a little higher. Okay. But again, you could say, okay, this is the side, come through the middle of there. You could then have, again, you could deal with the ocular cavities, or the sunglasses, as some people like to call it, where the sunglasses would come around. This head is a little wonky, but it's, again, this is a starting point. I don't care that I can change that later on. It even seems like somehow the head got a little, like it's somehow more round than it was before. That has to deal with how how thick did I make my ellipses and so forth and so on. Is what decides that. So again, this is going up and over the septum. This and then now because we're above, we're going to see less underneath the nose. So maybe this is the ball, and that's the septum because it's compressing. So you're going to see more or less of the underside of the nose, and is the more of the bridge. And then this is going to come up the sides. So that nose seems really short. Now I did kind of skimp on the septum, so it should go there. But this yeah, it looks like I came up too far. So this is about where it was before. So I think we're fine by leaving that again where it was. Now I think that nose is long enough to look like a nose for a human, anyways, and not some other creature. This would be again this right here would be the bridge, right? And this bridge would come up here until it hit the septum. This is the ocular cavities. As far as that goes, you would then have again the lips, and so we could put the mouth on here. And again, we're going to be seeing that. And the mouth is a curve, but then it's even curved even more because it's above the eye. So you're going to get more of a smile going on with the mouth, the structure of the mouth, as far as that goes. Even though he's not smiling. So if I tugged those corners down, that would make him seem like he's not, this is too far up. So it seems like he's got a goofy smile on his face. But so we'd have to play with that mouth a little bit. But this is the lips. This would be coming down here. Again, so we've got, and actually that would be compressing because it's going to shorten as it gets, our eye comes above, this distance shortens. even the top lip shortens and the bottom lip expands. There's little things like that I haven't done well in this, but it's close enough that it still kind of reads. Oh, this is from, above. So again, we'd still take from these two, the middle of the dais, we'd bring this down. That would go into the side plane in there. This would then be, again, the side. All this would be the side of that head. This would be the side of the head. Just all this good stuff. This would be the side, side of the head here, coming down into there. So that's what we would have here. We'd have this. This is with a high eye line. This with a low eye line. And again, this is just the hairline. It has no hair. At some point, we could put some hair on this person, and not make it look so strange. We could go ahead and start to put one of these conservative sort of dad haircuts on this person, or what have you. Now, technically, this should be seeing more of the head, more of the hair with this view, and it looks like I don't have enough hair on him for that to look right. So we'd have to change it. It's all these things make a difference. But again, this would be, if we add some hair on there, this would be this view of this person, like so. And again, so this is, again, with a high eye line, this is a low eye line. And what I'm talking about is where my eye is located, or the camera. The camera on this one's probably about here. The camera on this one's probably about there. And so again, this just means that this is going to start to have these angles like this, and with this high line, the angles start to do this, which turns into the smile versus the frown. We're going to just very quickly, these are just these last two, no big deal. This is an extreme 3/4, so I'm going to start with my circle. This is really, really quite dull, this pencil. So let's see if it can make it through. Okay, so right there, not a perfect circle, but not awful. Far from perfect, but it's tolerable. I can deal with it. Again, my constructions, it's not how it starts, it's how it ends. Now, that doesn't mean I'm ignoring my constructions, but it also means I'm not sweating it either. So there's my ellipse inside of a circle. This is sort of laying down too far. This would go up. This would be perspective middle, and then this is going to arc, and so it pushes it out to the true middle over here. This would come up and over the head through there. So this is my center line, and we would bring this down here. Again, this is almost like this. The only thing, let's change it. So this was, again, a lower eye line. Let's put a high eye line. So again, this would come through about the middle of the circle. So it's just that we're going to have two angles, and those angles are going to make sort of a V. Now, there's some things I should say about the box. This distance here is just about the same distance there, which means it's almost a 45 view of a box. What does that mean? It means these two angles are the same, right to left. So that's important. I'm going to have this. Here's where this stops. So this is the front of the face versus the side of the face. This would come through here, touch there, hit there. That would then come at the same angle as this, because these are parallel. This again would be with a high, someone whose eyes are above this person, so they're either taller than them, or they're taking this from a taller vantage point. Not a super extreme vantage point, but they're just, so maybe the camera is here, the eye is here, just, at their forehead. That changes the perspective. This looks like the eye is down here towards the chin. And how does that change? Well, we have A's, and this we have V's. So we got A's here, we've got V's here. All right, and so then again, we go, okay, this is my center line right through there. I think my center line is a little bit too far to the right, just a tiny bit, so I moved it, just the thickness of the line. This would then come over. Now again, this distance would come down. Let's see, I think it's about there. Let's just double check that. That's close. That's pretty close. So we'll just leave it here. We're going to bring this down. Now again, sometimes people have a hard time with the chin, but if I put a little ellipse with the chin, now this is severe perspective, so there's much more of the right side than the left side. So understand that this is perspective middle and then some, because this is very extreme. Much more of this over here than this over here. So I'm going to do the same thing to that ellipse, but that represents the chin, and so it's going to come around there. It's going to come over here. Now we're going to take the halfway mark, sort of where the mouth would be, bring this over to this line there, change direction to that parallels to these lines here, and kind of where that hits, that's going to be the transition point of the jaw. If we're coming down off this dais, that's about the halfway point. And again, this is a higher eye line. So again, we'd come over here, and then we would change. That seems to be changing direction a little bit. Okay, so it was a little low, and then this comes over here and changes direction there. That's going to okay. So we're going to end up with this looking more like that. And this jaw right here looks a little, it's a little more pointy. This one here looks a little more square because this is an up view. The jaw becomes more square for an up view, and it becomes more pointy on a down view. This would then come up here. The lower quadrant there would be the ear. It's almost in profile, so the ear would be seeing a lot of that ear. We'd see, again, the cut of the skull would be cutting underneath here, so cuts into the circle. Again, we could go ahead and put a, sort of a little bit of the neck under here. Two sides of the neck right there. So again, we have, again, a nice little Loomis. We're gonna do one more real quick. Now this one, I just wanted to show a little something. So that's really nice if we have a hard time tracking a jaw. So let's start with our circle. So this is my circle. This kind of came down too far, but it's not gonna be a big deal. The top of the head is not the big deal. It's important, and luckily this didn't come down any further. So this is my circle for my Loomis, and then I've got this right here is my ellipse. So this right here is my ellipse. Now again, this would have just a slight angle to it, but here's what we're going to do. So what if I want to track the jaw all the way through to get a better jaw? Like I feel the jaw is just crazy. I don't know if I can get this jaw. Well, what you can do is actually, you could go ahead and we could actually turn this into a cylinder. So if this is the major axis point, this would turn 90 degrees, this would turn 90 degrees, where that touches there, that would be there, and we could put on, and the ellipse would be about the same opening, but this represents the ellipse that's around the corner. This is the flat part that's come around, that's around the corner there that I can't see. But the reason we want to do this is, let's say again, I had a jaw. I'm going to make sure these are pretty close to parallel. And I can track, this can help me for the jaw, dealing with the jaw. So let's say we said, all right, well, how about the center line? Where's that? And we'd say, well, that's, if that's the measured middle, which is pretty close to measured middle, the center is going to be somewhere right through here. So we'll bring that up and over the head. So we got this right here going up and over the head right there. Okay. So now, and again, if we did this right, I haven't done that per se, but we could say, but let's deal with the jaw. So again, this is for the jaw part. Now these are overlapping. So the center line is almost right in front of where the center of this ellipse is. Basically, it's right there. If I wanted to, I'd go, okay, let's take this jaw and bring this jaw down, and these jaws would be pretty close to parallel coming off of this point. So this and this line would be pretty close to parallel. This is around the corner. We wouldn't see this because the head would be in the way, but we're thinking of seeing through this thing. And so here's what we do. This would be the same length. This also, the cylinder I have is tilted because this right here is at a tilt, and the cylinder is at 90 degrees to that. And so, that's what's going on here. So this is, again, this ellipse that's around the corner. This is the center line, and where it hits the bottom of that ellipse, this is where the jaw is going to start around this on the left side. This is where this one's starting. Now again, I could go, okay, well, to get any further, we need to know the brows and stuff. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to put this line here, which is where the right side and the front side of the face are different. We would then go, okay, this is coming up over here halfway through, halfway through here till that hits there, and this is going to come down a little bit down here. Now, usually the side that's tilted towards me is or the smaller one is the more extreme angle. So this might be a little bit more like this, because this is shorter, this distance is shorter than that distance, which means this is turned more on this side than this side. So this is my more extreme angle of a box. Again, if you don't understand that, check out the perspective class to start thinking of boxes. The boxes really are important for Loomis, and not enough people talk about it. So again, so this is, let's say this is our main angle, and we're going to go and do the same thing with every, this up here is supposed to be parallel to that line there, and then it's supposed to be parallel as it comes across that side there. This is supposed to be parallel to all three of these, so that hits there, and this changes angles, and this has to now be parallel to these three over here, and so forth and so on. Okay, so this is, let's say this is the nose, that's the septum, cut that in half, that's the bottom of the lip. So if I do this and I take this over, and then I change direction, I come over here, and let's say, okay, all right, this is coming here, this is then going there, this is where the jaw transitions at the bottom of the lip, so that's a transition point. We can then go, okay, here's my center line, and I'm going to put my, and I want this ellipse to be parallel to these lines, so this is going at the wrong angle. See how that's, the major axis points like this. Well, these are supposed to be pointing the exact opposite way, which means I put that on there going the wrong direction. It should go that way. So this is the stuff when you're sketching you want to pay attention to, because that could be, that decision was a poor, very, very poor decision. But let's say this is the middle of the chin. Well, now what I can do is I can go, look, what we're going to come off of this point here, and it's got to connect there. Okay, that's the simple one. But sometimes we're like, how does this go around the corner? So again, this right here is this line coming from over here. So it's going across the left. Basically, this jaw is going to be going at the same angle as going across the front of the face. So I could keep this, again, if we're dealing with this, pardon me, I got the wrong line. Yeah, I got the wrong line. Okay. So we're going to keep this. What we're going to do here is we've got ellipse perspective up here, and we got this down here. So this is getting a little complex, but to just keep it simple, I'm going to come across the front of the face with that I was going to keep this parallel to this, and I just realized, well, these are my parallel lines, so I'm going to keep this parallel. So that means this is going to be coming down a little bit till that hits this line right there, and then this line here is going to transition to that line there. So this is how the jaw would look. Looks kind of funky because you wouldn't normally see these points of the jaw. But if I need it for some reason, like if I'm trying to figure out my chin, there's times where you might need this in extreme perspectives. This is not really necessary for this, but for an extreme perspective, we could certainly use it to figure out what is supposed to be going on in this thing. And this is supposed to be at an angle. So this has to be lower, that point there, lower than that point there. But now we would come off of here, and this is going to touch the outside of that chin. So again, this is that hidden line of the jaw going up and attaching to the far ellipse on the back side. This is the far ellipse on the back side. But again, this is if you ever need to judge and you're not sure what it's supposed to be doing. And let's just say, okay, we first did this with a barrel or a cylinder, but because I had this at an angle, that made my cylinder at an angle, or my cylinder had angles to it, because it's 90 degrees to the major axis. So if that's the major axis and this is the major axis, 90 degrees puts this at an angle, okay? And then I just marked on the bottom of this this ellipse around the corner, and this ellipse, that's where the jaw starts. Now where it got a little crazy was, okay, well, how about these over here at a different angle than that? And that's just because this is on the barrel, but this is actually on the jaw. And so it's going to be fine. Whether I did it up here and kept it close to this over here, no, not a big deal. That I dropped it here, not a big deal. So what I decided to do is to take from this point to this point, because they should, in theory, be in line to these. So I went ahead and kept that in line with that, which put, and I brought these angles parallel. This is longer than this because of the way we built this. If we'd gone like this, they'd be the exact same length. It's not going to be a big deal at this point because, again, it's chopping it all off anyways. Can't really see it. But it's this idea that if we need to kind of perceive how that jaw is coming around the corner, that can be a way of doing it. It's trying to break it down from its opposite side. This is, again, just a very easy view, so I wouldn't necessarily need to do that. But if I had in extreme views, there's times where it's like, what is that jaw doing? And you have to what's called plot it. We plotted this. This is where this point starts. That's where that point starts. This is the angle. This coming down. That's the angle where that coming down. This alignment's where this stops and that stops at the same place. This then stops here. That stops there. That turns the corner through the ellipse. And we've got ourselves the jaw. The jaw all the way around to where I can't see it. This would come through here. And again, this would be the ear right through there. So these are different Loomis heads. Now again, I went ahead and kept these slow and kind of explained it, but we want to be able to do it enough that we can very quickly, this is how let's do one on this side since I didn't do any of them this way. This is how quick we want to do it without me talking about it. I'm searching for that center line. That feels about right. Bring that up and over. This would then come up. That's going to hit here. So this comes up here. Keep it parallel to that. That comes across there. That comes here. That goes across there. This is looking up a little bit. We're going to bring this down for the chin. That seems a little too short. That seems about the same. We'll keep that there. This then's going to come down onto the chin. This is above, so we're going to have a more square jaw. So this has come over here. That goes there. Square jaw. This is the lower quadrant. That's where the ear would go. And we have ourselves a Loomis head. That's how quick you want to be able to get used to doing these. You might have to slow down in the beginning, but you want to get comfortable enough with them that you could crank out something that quick. And again, now this is also much darker than I would ever do this. If I was actually drawing this would be a little too dark because I'm still going to modify this. This is just the basic perspective of the head that I then need to modify. So that's my basic perspective of that head. This is a little bulbous, so we could go ahead and change that. This got a little flat, you could change that. So again, it's not perfect, but it's certainly fine enough. I think this might need a little bit of attention. And again, you could just go ahead and do your changes. Not a big deal. No harm, no foul. What you don't want to do is start to draft this and then take like 30 minutes trying to draft it and then start your head. You want to be able to understand what Loomis is doing. So you might have to take 20 minutes when you begin, but you want to get to the point where you can sketch out a head fairly quickly, 2 minutes or something like that, and then go on to the next one. And they don't have to be perfect. In fact, you're going to probably have a lot of ugly ones, but it's no better way to get this into your brain. So go ahead and, again, I could take from that center point to, again, this is the chin, and again, this is the easy planes of the face. That goes there. This goes through there. So this whole thing is the side, the left side of this head. And that's the front, and that's the front. And it's turned so much that we can't see any of the other side. So anyways, try to do some of these nice Loomis heads. There's some really great exercises. And yeah, the more you do them, the better you'll be, and the easier it'll get. So enjoy, get creative with it, have a good time. You guys take care now. Bye-bye.